Hello, friends. Welcome to Chicko's Video Dustbin Show. Today's episode is the 1988 horror film Hollowgate. The filmmakers right off the bat are letting us know this is a Halloween knockoff. Looks like a real happening party these humans are throwing. There's Pops having a cold one, just like my old man. A house full of snotty kids will make anyone pull out the hard liquor. Pops emerges from the shadows to yell at his kid because he can't bob for apples with a giant clown wig on his head and nearly drowns in sun in front of everybody. Pops goes back to drinking while arguing with his wife about he's responsible for raising the boy to become a man and gets violent when she tells him, "How do you know he's your son?" We cut to Mark telling his grandmother that he wished he could live with her and how he hates Halloween. And we jump ahead 10 years later. We see a teenage couple having some Jack and Cokes while making out. After they're finished, the couple decide to pay the grown-up Mark a visit at the gas station where he works. There is Mark, the Halloween humbug, who's 18 but looks 40. They pull an Al Bundy on him by giving him $1 for full-service gas. They tease the sexually repressed Mark by putting on a peep show, but he decides to light their fire after they give him another $1 for full service. He calls a local fire department to report a car fire and cackles, "Happy Halloween." We fast forward in time ahead, this time 2 years into the future. Mark sneaks into a convenience store after closing and scares a clerk. He apologizes and asks her out for ice cream. She rejects his offer and chases him out of the shop so she can close for the night. Mark takes the store keys while the clerk is trying to close. He asks her out for a movie date, but she says no. Mark attacks her this time, but she manages to escape. The clerk grabs the largest knife from the deli to protect herself against Mark. Mark confronts her, but is unfazed by the giant knife. He attacks her with her bare hands after he slices open his hand with their giant kitchen knife. We jump forward days later as a judge listens to attorneys argue for the fate of Mark, who was declared technically not insane, but the victim doesn't want to press charges. The psychiatrist wants to up his psychoactive medication and continue his therapy. The judge rules that Mark can stay with his grandmother, keep popping his pills, and see his shrink. We cut to Grandma at Hollowgate working on a tapestry and humming a song. But something worries her, and she decides to check on her crazy grandson. Mark comes out and pays a compliment to her grandmother's new tapestry before he goes totally psycho on her. Bye-bye, Grandma. The movie is padded out for a few minutes with these teenage clowns riding around. The party of four stop off and decide to dine on cold cuts and Coronas before heading out to the Halloween shake dig at this place called The Hangar. Before heading off to the concert, decide to go to the costume shop and what the hell? I thought this was an R-rated movie. But the four losers decide to buy costumes before heading off. But the gang is low on funds to buy a fancy wig. The owner says he'll give the girl a wig if they deliver some costumes to Hollowgate, which is Granny's estate where the psycho Mark lives. The Scooby-Doo gang decide to head out to Hollowgate and are totally creeped out by it. They buzz Mark, who lets them in, along with his order of 12 costumes. Instead of ditching the costumes like the boyfriend suggested, they decide to stay and tour his house. Mark steals the driver's tweaker keychain. Dude has more keys than a jailer. While snooping around, one of the kids sees Grandma hanging around with a pair of scissors in her eye. That's when Mark decides to play a deadly game of hide and seek with his newly arrived guest. They try running off, but Mark teases them with the driver's car keys. They try leaving Hollowgate, but find out that the complex is surrounded by an electric fence. Mark tells his guest that he just wants to play a game. The Scooby-Doo gang decide not to play along with Mark and try to flee. Meanwhile, two flatfoots decide to drive around and talk about Mark for several minutes. The full moon is out while those meddling kids try and find a way out of Hollowgate. Meanwhile, Mark looks at his G.I. Joe costume and starts to have imaginary Vietnam flashbacks. The Scooby-Doo gang seems to be wandering around in circles. One of them decides to get the bright idea to split up the gang instead of just jumping on the psycho and kicking his brains in. The dude sneaks off into a nearby shed and tries to steal Mark's Volvo, but he surprises him and shanks him in the stomach. He tries to escape, but he gets tomahawked in front of his friends. Meanwhile, miles away, the two Flatfoots decide to grab a free meal and pad out the movie, while Mark continues to traumatize the Scooby-Doo gang by dressing up as Deputy Dog. Soon all three decide to split up, leaving them to be easy pickings for Mark. He goes after the trio in a combine harvester, but realizing that it takes forever, he shoots one of them and runs her over. The dork is shot as well and has to suffer a fate nastier than death, having to listen to Mark's terrible dialogue. Back at the cafe, the two Flatfoots continue to pad out the movie. The dork and Kim are still trying to find a way out. Mark finds the two and is dressed up in his polo outfit. I guess the rest of the costumes didn't fit his fat, dumpy ass, and he unleashes two golden retrievers on them. The dogs lick the dorky one to death. Mark catches the last one, the Dollar Tree Thelma. Back at the cafe, the costume shop owner tells the Flatfoots that he sent a bunch of kids to deliver costumes to Hollow Gate. The cops decide to call Granny. Back at Hollow Gate, we discover that Mark has a medical fetish and plays doctor with Kim. Tango and Cash decide to head out to the Hollow Gate to check up on Granny. Mark, however, turns into Dr. Satan and tries to give Kim a lobotomy. The quick-thinking Kim knocks the doctor's special potion out of his hands, which splashes upon his face, and she stabs him with his substitute scalpel and flees. Crockett and Tubbs finally arrive at Hollowgate but can't get in due to the electrical fence. Mark manages to get up on his feet and stalk Kim. The super cops get in by shooting the gate's circuit box, while Mark continues to hunt for his elusive prey. Choir boys storm the house when they hear the girl scream. Mark is about to kill Kim before he's interrupted by Starsky and Hutch, who shoot him several times in the head. Early next morning, the local authorities come in to haul away all the bodies and preserve the crime scene. Kim, the survivor, is in shock and freaks out when she sees the doctor and thinks it's the dead Mark come back to life. Despite Mark being shot in the head several times with a .38 special, he is still alive. The end. Good lord, this movie is terrible. I mean, it started off as a Halloween knockoff. They might as well went full tilt boogie and did a remake of it, and it would have been miles better than this mess. Why in the hell were the producers trying to set this up as a franchise? Nobody wanted to see any more from this clown unless they decided to make a sequel that was a ripoff of Patrick. I mean, they could have totally went that route. Just cheap out on the budget and have him kill people from his bed. Maybe those bullets in his brain, along with those heavy doses of psychoactive medication, gave him supernatural paranormal powers. Well, no, that's too creative for these losers. If they made a sequel, they would have just ripped off Halloween 2 and made Mark slumber around the hospital looking to kill Kim. Hey now, don't be stealing my idea either, or I'll get my personal lawyer, Harvey Birdman, on your ass. This movie could have been somewhat interesting if they kept the way it started out, but no. They had to get a balding, creepy-looking 40-something-year-old telling dad jokes while he goes around killing several dumb victims. The director of this mess was Ray Di Zazzo, which sounds like a dumber pseudonym than Chester Ainsworth Wellington. Made only one film, and it was this stinker. The actor who played Mark was Addison Randall, whose family came from old Hollywood. His father was a character actor, Robert Livingston, and his maternal grandfather was movie producer, Hal Roach. After this film, he directed 5 Grade Z films, which I hope to be reviewing very soon, which titles such as Shotgun and East LA Warriors. Well, thanks for watching another fine episode of Chicko Dee's Video Dustbin Show. I'll see you next time at the video store.